Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Authenticity. So anyone feel any things about authenticity? Oh, let me just ask you this. What does authenticity mean to you? I'm just going to throw it out. As we've done in the past, just yell out, what is authenticity, or being authentic, however you want to define it. What does being authentic or authenticity mean to you? Being true to yourself. I heard being real. Freedom.
No pretending.
Wait, I can't hear. What? Speak what?
Speaking from the heart.
Speaking from the heart.
No pretending.
No pretending.
Being who you are.
Being who you are.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Anything online there, Kathy?
Honesty.
Honesty, yeah.
Stepping out failure.
Stepping out in failure. Right on, Jack. Yes. Yes to all of it. And so it is the joy of the freedom and being honest, and it's also the process of getting there, which sometimes can be challenging. And so today, in talking about knowing that we have 2 months, because to me, like I said, authenticity and vulnerability are so intertwined. So we have 2 months of this. So I really want to establish the parameters today. And what made me think about this, there's 2 things that made me think about how important these parameters are. I do these Zoom calls with my brothers every week now, because my mother has dementia. So for a little over a year, we've been on Zoom calls. And recently, it's been very agitating to me. So I thought, well, before I address it with them, I'll go talk to a therapist, just get clear on what's going on for me, so that when I address them, I know what's going on. When I was in college, I went to a therapist. He was great, twice a week for 4 years. So I've done a lot of work on myself. So I just thought, I'll just go in. So the very first session, I've never been to a bad therapist before. So I'm just giving you these little hints. Because what I learned about what didn't work is why I wanted to make sure we're clear here. So I came in, and the way I look at, so this is how I didn't realize it till after the session. The way I look at when I walk into work with a new therapist who I don't know is that it's like a house. I'm a house. And when that first session is the vestibule, we are hanging out in the vestibule, and I'm talking about what's in my house, but I'm not inviting them in yet. I'm just setting up the stage, and that we have to get an agreed upon that we're on the same page, and then and then you keep going to therapy to go into the house and go into things. Well, what I experienced that first session, he really wanted to get to the meat of it, like that day in a moment, and so the visual that was coming to me so intensely after the session was, it was kind of like I was in the vestibule and he just pushed me aside, went barreling into my house, and like, okay, so how are you feeling about this? Where is it in your body? Da-da-da-da, da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, like I felt like I was being utterly attacked. Like, wait a minute, I have not invited you into my house yet, and you're like wandering all over it, asking me questions, and you don't even seem to care what I'm answering because you just go on to the next room. And so that's what I realized was a bad therapy session. And so I just, I think in today's world, we're becoming more conscious about trauma. And I just took a class or a workshop on trauma-informed teaching. And one of the things I'm learning, I always had a very definite idea of what trauma was, and the definition is increasing. So a lot of people have experienced trauma through abuse or assault or verbal abuse, but they really expanded it. It's really anything that has harmed you, neglect, and you feel sort of stuck in that area. So the trauma is you're sort of stuck and you can't move forward because emotions start coming up that aren't necessarily rational. They're coming from a pre-rational stage of emotions. So it's a lot from past coming up. So in this class that I took about trauma-informed teaching, it's very much the same idea of the vestibule. For people to feel safe, because we're spending 2 months on authenticity and vulnerability. And some of you might be totally feeling completely healthy in all of the rooms of your house, and you can share very freely and openly about all the rooms of your house, and that's awesome, and I hope over the next 2 months you do share. We like to hear people who are free in all these different areas. Some of you may have areas that you're really healthy in, and other places you might not even know that you're healthy, or you're just still doing work on it. And then there's some areas that show up that you didn't even know you had. And I'm becoming more conscious of this because of this has been showing up for people that I know, and I'm going to share one because this person, I could say their name because they shared it for a whole conference, for a whole Vista conference, but for some reason I still don't want to share their name. But they've been in this teaching since the 1980s. They were students of Louise Hay and very, very close friends with her whole life. Their minister, this person's a minister, they've been living this through and through in a very high quality way, giving their life and their service not only to this country, but in the world and all these, they're just really amazing people. And what, I'm saying people, it's one person, but I'm just trying to keep the gender out of it as well. And so then in just a few years ago, in the late 2016 or 17, they were giving a talk at their center, saying the same thing they said a million times, and they said suddenly they popped out of their body, and this whole thing came out from within them that they didn't even know was there. 40 years they'd been doing this. And then they went on a whole healing journey after that, and they were talking about that healing journey. So when we start to talk about something as real as our authentic self and our vulnerable self, doors start to open. There's no way to be, you can't stay in protection and be vulnerable. So, and the thing about being vulnerable is you're not in control all the time. Feelings start coming up, emotions start coming up. So what I want to say, as we talk about these things, we want this to be a safe thing. So if ever you're in a Sunday service and I'm talking about something or something's coming up, you don't have to stay in the room. You can wander around in the back if you need to move in your body, if you need to go off out into the lounge and just center yourself. We have practitioners who are here, and on online too. If you just need to take space, take space. But we have practitioners online and we have practitioners in the room. If you just walk over to a practitioner and just hold their hand and say, "Can you just sit with me and hold my hand?" They'll do that. This is tender territory, and we want to make sure everyone is taken care of. We want to go through it because we all want to have that freedom of being our authentic self, to have the freedom to fully express who and what we really are into the world. But we want to get there in a gentle and loving and supportive way. So you're with me on that? And you're willing to so can our practitioners just stand just so that people know who you are? And so you can just go over and hold their hand. Say, "Just hold my hand." And they'll do that. And even if you want prayer, you can go off into the lounge and get prayer. Authenticity. So there's a woman named Ermina Ibarra. I didn't know her until the TED Talk that I listened to. And I loved what she had to say because I thought it was very interesting. She's an academic over in London, and she was talking about authenticity, and she said, it's interesting, the talk she gave was in 2019, and she said the research for the last 10 years, so from 2009 to 2019, authenticity has hit the headlines, it has tripled in those last 10 years. Like authenticity is a really big thing now, to be authentic. She said she looked it up. There was 20,000 books on Amazon about authenticity, and there were 4 million workshops on how to become authentic. How to become authentic, steps 1, 2, and 3. I was listening to an interview with a friend of mine from high school. Her son is Generation Z. And he was talking about why Generation Z was different than all the rest of the generations. And he said, well, we're authentic, but we're authentic for real. And they said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, it's not a cliche. It's not a product that you buy or a workshop you go to. We just live authenticity. It's just who we are. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting that he was picking up on this that it's become a thing. And that's really important for us to be aware of. Brene Brown's definition of being authentic is letting go of who you are supposed to be and embracing who you really are. Letting go of who you are supposed to, or who you think you're supposed to be, and who you really are. So to begin with, and as we're going through this thing of authenticity, to who we're supposed to be, that comes from a lot of different directions, as we know. Most of you are very self-evolved, that's why you're here. You know, family, culture, people telling you who they think you should be, and you beginning to pull back and say, well, who do I want to be? But I also want to say that that's even in the realm of authenticity. That now that authenticity has become a thing, a product that you can buy, you could say, well, am I doing it right? Like, am I being authentic the right way? And that becomes a way you're supposed to be. Well, I'm supposed to be authentic. I remember I was in a group and they said, all right, first time we're meeting in a group, okay, everyone share something vulnerable. How do you force vulnerability? I just didn't like, it's like, and then I remember Glennon Doyle, I loved what she said. She was like, well, it's almost like canned vulnerability. She goes, I have my vulnerability story and I can sit down and tell anybody, but it was vulnerable, but it's canned. Like, I got the whole story and I can tell you it. But vulnerability is when you're speaking in the moment, you're not in control of the story. Like, canned vulnerabilities, you got the whole story and you can talk about it. When you're in the moment, it's when it's messy, when it's hard. That's when it really starts to feel vulnerable, because you don't have all the answers yet. You don't know how people are going to react. I remember I just was listening to a Brene Brown talk in like 2019, and the first I heard of Brene Brown, probably like a lot of you, is through, oh, you got to watch her TED Talk. And what was interesting about that was years later, she's talking about it. I had no idea. It was traumatic for her because she was sharing vulnerably, and she made the mistake of looking at the comments. Like, I thought, oh, she's gonna, like, people are gonna be raving about it, because anyone who talked to me about, oh, she said it was just one comment. Of course, you know, look at your body. There was a lot of body shaming about how she looked. Of course, you don't have this together. You're not an academic. Why do you keep, just one thing after another. And she just fell apart. Like, she had opened up her heart. And the response in the comment section, not from the world, obviously, with the millions of views, but she didn't know that at the time. She just got the negativity. So this journey of becoming authentic, you don't have control over it. You don't have control how people are going to respond to you. That's what makes it vulnerable. If you basically know, that's the canned vulnerable speech, how you've tailor-made it, it's a performance kind of thing now, you're not really vulnerable. You've got it down. So authenticity, letting go of who we think we're supposed to be, to becoming who we are. I also really resonated with, so Ermina Ibarra talked about the word authenticity, and it came from a Greek word, which is about working with your hands, but ultimately the way it was used in Greece is that you become the author of your own life. That's a really important part for us, because it's very similar what Jenny was saying about her song, is an ongoing transition. So when we say who you really are, as if it's a static thing, like who I really am, I'm going to just be who I really am. And what she said, for them, it was an ongoing, you are the author of what is authentic. So first of all, there's no external 1, 2, 3, now I'm authentic. You are the one who decides whether you're authentic, and authentic is an ongoing thing. It's what was authentic for you 10 years ago may not be authentic for what is authentic for you today. I love that. We are the author of our journey. Isn't that beautiful? So authenticity isn't something you arrive at, which we heard in the reading, and say, I'm done, I'm cured, I know who I am. It's an ongoing journey of which we are constantly want to be caring for ourselves and kind to ourselves as we continue to learn. Authenticity. the unfolding of who and what we really are. I just went blank, sorry. I have so many, so as we are unfolding in who we are, we have to not know who we were at other places. So she shared something to me that I think is very important about authenticity. She was talking about the way, when we say who we really are, she called it conservative identity. That we have an idea of who we are, and then we can get stuck in saying, well, this is who I am. And when we are being asked to expand beyond that, we'll say, well, that's not who I am. But the reason why we're saying that is because it's not familiar. I don't know that part of me. So this is the part that's so important to be embraced in spiritual principle, to recognize that we are infinite beings. That's how we begin all our prayers, that we are infinite beings. And so a lot of those boundaries that we put on ourselves and say, that's not me, that's somebody else, is actually a human-made construct that doesn't have any reality in the absolute. In the absolute, we are capable of being so much more than we can imagine. So she gave a couple examples, actually 2 examples that were very similar, of herself and of an engineer. And in both cases, they had a very definite idea of who they were. The engineer had a very clear, she was about numbers, she was really good at it. That's where she excelled, and it was substantive, you know the word. And she is an academic and an introvert. So she's an introvert and she knows her material. In both cases, these 2 people wanted to reach a greater audience. And these are 2 separate cases, but they were so similar. And in both cases, they were guided to, okay, you need to start reaching out more. You need to move past the boundaries. And the engineer's like, no, that's just performative, like, look at me stuff. I'm not interested in that fake, shallow stuff. I am about substance here. I got the numbers. I don't need to do little performing dances. She was going through her her conservative identity. I've never heard it said like that. I really like it. Conservative traditional identity. She's an engineer. This is who she is. To be something else felt like a completely foreign experience, and it felt inauthentic. It felt like it was a lie. That was what's so interesting. When we talk a lot about growth and evolution, but as we begin to grow and evolve, we start to say, well, that's not who I really am. That's who I really am, because this is so unfamiliar. So that's inauthentic. And she was talking about her own experience with that as an academician and introvert, and her guy was saying, you have to go out and connect with the students. And she's like, no, that's not who I am. Thank you very much. I'm going to give them what I know, and then you're going to have to come to me. But she tried it, and she said it was very awkward at first, reaching out, because she felt very uncomfortable. But she was aware, oh, this doesn't feel familiar, so it feels like a lie. But she started to stay with it and expand. So this is why it's really wonderful to understand what we mean by authentic self. It's not a static thing, and it's not just based on what we know about ourselves. It is constantly growing and evolving. Last week, I talked a lot about visioning. So visioning, for those of you who don't know, it's about getting really still. It's not about visualization is what you already know. Visioning is about listening. So opening up, what is the vision for my life? And for those of you who have done visioning, one of the things we know about it is almost always what starts to come when we open ourselves up to this universe is we're going to get things that aren't familiar. The spirit evolves, it's always growing, and it's going to grow through you. So the things you're going to start seeing are things that you are not already doing. If it's just showing you what you're already doing, then you're just getting repetition and pattern. None of us is here to stay the same. We're here to continue to grow and evolve in our understanding of things. That's why sometimes I think we have such a hard time with visioning, because if we're really doing it, we're going to have to let go of what we're supposed to be and let go of what we thought we were for something bigger. Not that we can integrate that past, but to become something bigger. So for me, some of you are familiar with this story, but it's to show that this is never ending. So in my family dynamic, I was the shy, quiet one. I have 3 very loud brothers, beautiful brothers, very loud, confident parents, confident. They all had a lot of opinions, a lot of energy. So I was quite comfortable being in the background. It was not vying for attention. So years later, when I got the call to ministry, it was very clear, it was very direct, and I know it had to be because I wasn't one of those people who wanted to be in front of people. That wasn't something I strived for. And it was undeniable. It was something I couldn't get out of. In fact, I tried to get out of it several times. I quit ministry 3 times because it was so uncomfortable. I talk about it because it's in the past. So it's easy for me to talk about it, but in the moment, it was so hard. I used to cry about it all the time, and I really didn't feel like God loved me. Because I'm like, you know me. It was exactly this conversation. This is not authentic. You know who I authentically am. I am happy in my room by myself with my books, and I'm writing. That's me. You are being very unfair and unloving to me by making me do this job. And it wasn't just standing up in front of people. It was just suddenly like being in this leadership position. It was so uncomfortable. That was something my brothers did or my parents did. That was not me. Why would a loving God do that, or a loving presence, whatever your language is, loving, infinite love, intelligence, spirit, universe, invite me to do that? Because it knew that I was more than what I was thinking of it. So eventually I got to the place where I did start to get comfortable being a minister. But it's been interesting because it's really been up for me on a whole nother, there's layers. And it's been up for me on a whole nother layer. And I know because I'm spending more time with my brothers than I've ever spent, all those old issues from childhood, and because I'm talking about them, they're not here, I just want to be clear, they were never abusive to me. And I'm not going to get into what it is because it's not fair, but I'm just going to say those, for me, my issues, I don't think they have any issues. We get off, they're fine. It's me, I totally own that. But it's all those childhood things that I used to feel are so on the surface right now, which is why I want to be very careful about how we deal with this, because I know what's been going on for me, and as we're talking about this all month, this may unfold. It starts to come up to the surface. It's a whole other layer than what I was feeling before, but it's real. It's hard. I don't know how it's going to turn out, in dealing with them. I don't know how they're going to respond as I'm more and more honest with them. How are they going to, am I going to be shoved out of the family? Are they going to tell me they're like, what's the matter with you, Harriet? We're fine. This is all your stuff. Why are you so nutty? I don't know how it's going to turn out. That's the authentic self becoming more authentic. It's not always easy. And it's a continuing journey. It's different than it was when I first became a minister. That is an old story. I can tell it and talk about it, and it's in the past. And then there's the present story. So as we're going through this next 2 months of authenticity and vulnerability, my invitation to you is to open yourself up and say, when I say I am being who I really am, is that who I am a familiarity? Are you open to becoming a new version, or not to it's transcend and include? You include who you've been, but you're becoming even more. Is there a part of your life where you're willing to become even more? Are there parts of your life that you need to heal? As I was talking about the rooms of the houses, maybe you have some rooms really well covered, but other rooms not so much. The authentic self is the whole picture. I love, that's why we had the reading today from Thomas More about how complex the soul is, and it might take multiple lifetimes to actually really understand, because we are these infinite multidimensional beings. So there's so much there when we say, be your authentic self. And the authentic self is the I am that I am. It's pretty infinite. There's a lot in there. You have the cosmos in you, but it's a cosmos in a very personal history. That's a personal history just to you and nobody else. So the invitation this whole next 2 months is to go deeper and deeper into who you really are, and what does that even mean, to be utterly honest with yourself, to talk to practitioners if you need to. I listened to this someone posted on Facebook, I don't know who it was, but I can't even remember what it was. She was referring to something, but she said, don't do this alone. No one was meant to do this all alone. We are here together to support one another. No one can do this alone. Reach out, connect with people. And even as we're doing this on our own, we want to be clear as well about what's happening in our world, about other people who don't have the freedoms that we have. You know, I hear these laws that are wanting to be passed in countries states, I feel like countries, states, to make transgender illegal. You can go to jail. A lot of laws around the LGBTQ community, being drag queen. It's horrific. We are hurting people's souls deeply and profoundly because we are afraid. We are afraid to move away from that conservative identity of who we think we are. This is the collective identity, and move into, oh, we're so much more than that. We are people, human beings are so much more than these very small labels that we have. This is what we start to know as we grow, and there are people who are very afraid of this change, and so they want to regress into what is familiar. And so I believe as spiritual beings on this earth, we are here also to stand for people whose voices aren't always heard or respected or valued. Either way, whether it's our voice or other people, we stand for people whose rights are actively being promoted to not being valued. The talk that was given today was, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. That is a quote from Oscar Wilde, who in 1895 was imprisoned for 2 years for being a homosexual. And he died just a few years later, completely poor. Oscar Wilde, the brilliant poet and writer of Importance of Being Earnest, Dorian Gray, brilliant. That was over 100 years ago, and we're still doing that to people and saying, you're not worthy. And the thing is, and I'm saying people, but it could be us. You know, I'm not saying it's out there. It's us, all of us. It's not them, it's us. We're doing it to us, to ourselves, because when we are denied the gifts and the brilliance of people, we are denying ourselves to experience their gifts and their brilliance. Yeah? You know, I look at in our CSL community, we have so much diversity in our community, in this organization of ministers. And so many of them could not be ministers in the tradition in which they were raised. And I thought, wow, those traditions really missed out, because these people are brilliant and they bring so much great stuff. These people, I don't put myself in that category because I haven't had that same discrimination that others do. But I don't mean to say these people as if they're not part of me and I'm not part of them. So as we're looking at authentic self, we're looking at it for ourselves, for the continuing unfoldment of our life, and we're looking it out into the world and the continuing unfoldment of the world, to not be afraid, to feel the feelings that are uncomfortable. I don't mean to say that people shouldn't feel uncomfortable about anything. We all have different things that we get uncomfortable, and that's fine. But let us be willing to be uncomfortable. Let us be willing to be a little unsettled about how things are, because that's how we get free. That's how we become unlimited, joyful beings of light and of love, when we stop being afraid to feel those uncomfortable feelings. And so I just want to end, because I just heard Jack say something about authenticity was about failing. And one of the things that I heard Brene Brown that I hadn't thought about, but she said, I guarantee you, if you are on this journey to become your authentic self, to be fully who you are, to live your wholehearted self is her phrase, to live your wholehearted living, you're going to fail. And she said she was talking to this group of people, and they're like, yeah, I get it, we might fail. And she goes, no, you're not hearing me. You are going to fail. It's part of the process. It's part of the journey. And I didn't memorize it. It was pretty awesome. She gave that Teddy Roosevelt quote that the life belongs to the people who are in the ring, participating and giving themselves, and they get bloody and you get dirty and it's hard. Then the people on the outside who are just watching and saying, well, that's separating themselves and it's all comfortable. We're in the ring. If you're on a spiritual journey, we're in the ring, all of us, and we're in it together, and we all have different things that might trigger us or upset us, but we're all on this journey of becoming, and we need to support each other in that journey of becoming, because it's scary and it's tender. And as one therapist said, you can see my blind spots better than I can see them, and I can see your blind spots better than you can see them, so let's all be really tender with each other, because we all have our blind spots. Every one of us. Nobody's free of that. But we all want to grow and become freer and freer. So let's do this journey. Are you up for it? Becoming more fully who we are, to expand our light and our love, because we are living. I love the phrase that she uses, wholehearted living. So it's so great to be with all of you. And I have to say, even as we're closing, going into prayer, I'm really excited for our upcoming new music. So when we go into prayer as well, I want to say the purpose of prayer is for a shift in consciousness. Just maybe, and so sometimes someone was saying, why do the prayers go so long? I'm not trying to get anything out there. The intention for all of us when we go into prayer together is that we have this collective shift. We're already there. We've already been talking a little bit about oneness, a little bit less today, but we're talking about oneness to shift into that consciousness that we are that place of oneness. That's the whole purpose of prayer, is about a becoming. And so I invite you now just to join me in that. Don't worry about the words. I'll talk a lot, but it's not about that. It's about going inside of yourself and just the one power and one presence. Just stay in that and allow the shift to happen. Allow the energy shift to happen inside of you. And if you're already there, let it expand even greater. So we stand or sit together, join together in prayer. And if you aren't comfortable with your eyes closed, feel free to have them open. And so we begin or continue in this consciousness that there is only one presence and one power and one life. We hear the words, and we allow those words to drop into our heart. There is only one. There is nothing other than this one. There's nothing fighting us. There's nothing against us. There's nothing we have to push against. We are in, through, and as this one life, this one presence, this one love, this one peace where there is no opposite. That this entire universe is a friendly universe, and it is for us. It is for itself as you. And so each and every one of us is swimming and feeling into this oneness, and we can never be outside of this love. There's no more love in the past or in the future than there is right now in the midst of your heart. The center of your heart is the infinite cosmic love of the universe. It is who we are right here and right now. We don't have to make it happen. We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to change anything. It is already there. It is always already fully being itself as all of us in this moment. Let's just breathe that into our heart. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to make anything happen. We just simply recognize this love. The entire love of the cosmos, this love that has authored this creative experience, this love that is the source of all life, is who and what each of us is. It radiates and pulsates from every atom and cell of our being, to every organ and action and function is made in, through, and as pure, unlimited, unbounded love. It is always whole. It is always whole. It is whole. The things of this world, the conditions and the circumstance can never touch this wholeness and this love that we are. It is pure and it is perfect here and now. We claim and accept this right here and right now. We just hold into this beautiful, radiant space that just as we are, with all our complications, with everything that is there, we are loved, we are loved, we are loved. Every part of our being, those parts we don't like and those parts we love, those parts we are healing and those parts that we don't even know about yet, as well as those parts that we feel so strong and joyful about, all of it is this wonderful oceanic love that is pouring through and as our consciousness right here and right now. And so for this prayer, we are not actually praying for anything other than to know this love intimately and powerfully in every area of our life. And as we continue to grow and deepen and then recognizing this always already whole love, this beautiful unconditional love, this love that has no condition, we allow our heart space to open and pour out into every individual in whom we come in contact, with whom we come in contact. Love, love, and more love. Unconditional love. That doesn't mean on the human level there isn't work to be done. There is. But we are standing always as spiritual being in that dual world, in that world where we know that all the love that has ever been has already been given. It's already there. We are standing and walking forth knowing that the way before us has already been made. The grace goes before us and makes the crooked places straight. This love is going before us and doing the healing work, and we are walking in that path. Right here and right now, inwardly and outwardly. There is no in and out, and yet we experience inward and outwardly. So let us see it, feel it, and know it inwardly and outwardly. One thing happening, one thing happening. There's never a time when we're outside of this one thing. We are never outside of this one thing. We are this love. We are this love. We are this love. We can never be anything but love. And everything that we look at is we see with the eyes of love. We see with the eyes upon each other. We see with the eyes and feel with the heart of love. When we continue, as people cross our awareness, they are safe in our inner world because we are love. We see plants. We see rocks. We see people that look different, that maybe act different, that may make us uncomfortable. And yet we know behind that is love. Behind all form, sentient life form is love. This is who we are. This is who we are now. This is who we are forever. This is our true being. And we celebrate it, and we give thanks for it, and we let it be. And so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.